Welcome. You are live with Team Superdad. This is Johnny Jensen, the founder and creator of Team Superdad and the Hero Academy program. We are an irresistible community of men creating the lives that we want, not the life that we feel stuck in. And today I'm talking to Michael Dominguez about property investing, or for our American friends, real estate investing. Roll theme. I can find the flipping theme. Roll theme.
Welcome to Team Super Dad. Real dads creating their best lives ever. More time, more money, more fun. You are not alone. You're on Team Super Dad.
Hey, Michael, good to have you with us today. How's it going?
I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
Brilliant. Obviously, as I said, real estate and property investing. You're joining us from America. Whereabouts in the States are you?
Actually, I'm from around Toronto, Canada, actually.
Oh, he's done that awful thing that people do. Yeah, sorry. So to all our Canadian friends, family, Team Superdad members, welcome. And so you are Canadian, yeah?
I am Canadian, yes.
You live up near Toronto. Wow. Were you anywhere near the real crazy heat earlier this summer?
No, that was more in the West Coast. We had our typical 26, 28 degrees Celsius type days, but nothing like what was being reported at West Coast.
You'll
crazy.
Yeah. If you like to see other people having less of a fun time as you'll be happy to hear that it has pretty much rained all summer here in Britain. So.
Hey, you know what? I'd rather be anywhere than I need to get away and travel again. You know, I was in a British Isles tour 2-3 years ago, and thinking, I'm going to go back again and again, and no one's traveled anywhere in the last couple of years. So.
No, exactly, and let's hope we can get back to some kind of normality. I've got friends and family in Chicago, and I've got family in France. So yeah, I'm missing everybody for sure.
Yeah.
Well, today, Michael, we are going to be talking about property investing or real estate investing. You've just got a book out, Armchair Real Estate Investor. I think you're going to
millionaire. Yeah.
Millionaire, Armchair Real Estate Millionaire. Brilliant. And completely transparent with my listeners as I am. Was it like your PR company or your publisher, or who was it that reached out to me?
Yeah, the PR, yes. Yeah.
PR company. So yeah, and I get lots of those. So not all of the people don't even check out who they're sending it to half the time, but your guys did, and I said to them, okay, well, does this apply to the UK? And you came back with loads of examples of different ways that it did apply, and I kind of feel like the wonderful thing about property is wherever we go, it's there.
That's a good way of describing it. Absolutely. And it's one of these things that I really didn't understand. I was always a wannabe entrepreneur for all of my from teenage years to the time I was in my 40s. I tried and pretty much failed in almost everything I did. And honestly, the act of purchasing cash flow generating real estate has just literally changed my life. Nothing short of that.
That's amazing. And I know that the Team Superdad members are excited to hear about that. And one of the things that appealed to me when chatting to Lauren, I've been to those events, the Millionaire Maker event, right? I've broken boards on stage. And
both have. Yeah.
That's the good thing about those events. The bad thing about those events is run to the back of the room, because they've got you all jacked up on promises of being a millionaire. They've got you all jacked up, and you run to the back of the room, and then you get out your credit card and spend money that you don't have. I literally went home to my fiance like Jack and the bloody beanstalk. He said,
I've got these beans.
That was it. She said, how was your day? I said, it was bloody amazing. I've just spent £4,000. And she did not think that was quite so amazing.
Yeah, it's And that's the thing that's so amazing about this industry is that you don't necessarily need to spend tens of thousands of dollars or pounds in order to get ahead. But there is, some base knowledge and investing smarter. I can tell you when I first got started in this industry, I purchased what I was told was the right stuff to do. And so when I got a little bit of education, it really did set me in the right direction. So I'm looking forward to chatting about that for sure.
Yeah. And I put in the blurb for our conversation today. So we're live on most of the socials. And if you're watching, then welcome. Good to have you here. Please feel free to check in. We can see comments from most platforms and you can say a little hello. You can ask a question. If I can do two things at once, which apparently men can't do. Ask a question like this with a little smiley. I can share that and just illustrate how people can do that. If you're listening on the podcast, well, then sorry, you can't do that. But by all means, you can bring your questions over to the Team Superdad group or to message me, and Michael and I will be keeping in touch. So you won't be left alone out there. And in fact, let's get this up front because people always leave it to the end of the podcast and people don't always listen to the end of the podcast. Where can people come and get a copy of the book? Where can people come and connect with you? Let's get that up there now so people don't worry about that.
Absolutely. Again, the book is called Armchair Real Estate Millionaire, and nice and simple. It's armchairrealestatemillionaire.com is our website, and you can reach out to me at info@armchairrealestatemillionaire.com. And honestly, simple as Amazon is as great a place as anything to purchase the book. It's about $25 Canadian, $20 US. I don't know what the pound rate would be.
About $16.99 in pound.
There you go. And so we'll talk more about the book itself, but it's not designed for someone that's hoping to buy 100 or 1,000 properties or anything like that. As little as 2 or 3 properties when purchased correctly is essentially a side hustle that can truly change your life. Doing it properly and leveraging correctly, you can actually become a millionaire through just as few as 2 or 3 properties in the right market.
Yeah. And when I was kind of checking you out and I listened to a couple of podcasts that you'd been on and just liked the ease of which you chat about it. And, I think it's important when all these opportunities of people who just launched a book come around to have them on the podcast, it can seem like a little bit of a parade show, but and not all those conversations end up being much value, but I know this one will be because so many people ask about property investing, real estate investing, and there's just an avalanche of it on YouTube, on Facebook, those kind of events that I was speaking to. So, and I think that for all the people that want to do it, that can put some people off because it's overwhelming. So I think there's 2 camps that people fall into. Is the first question, if people go, oh, surely it's too late to get into property investing. They've already decided before they even get the answer to that question, whether they're going to do it or not. And then there's the second group, and I probably fall into this second group, where there's so much information out there. You think, I don't know where to start. Someone says it's really easy. Someone says I need a load of money. Someone says join my group. Someone says go for it and do buy to rent, let, do for business property. You just go, oh, I think I'm just going to carry on doing my job. And as you just alluded to there, you said it can be quite easy. You can start quite small, and it can turn into nice money. And that's either for retirement, as a side hustle, or a main source of income. Is it now that your main source of income now?
It's never really been designed to be my main source of income. I was a realtor, and I guess I still am a realtor, but I'm not very active anymore. And real estate has allowed me to build enough wealth. What I've always done for real estate is it was never meant to be a cash flow play for me early on. It was meant to be a wealth generator. And so what I would do is I would refinance many of my properties as they appreciated in value, and I forced the appreciation. And then I used that money to buy another one and another one. And for 10 straight years, I bought one investment property, essentially. And it sounds like a crazy ask to do that, when you're looking to buy your first one. But, things start falling into place pretty quickly in an appreciating market. And so as a result, my cash flow was never incredible because every time I refinanced it, that would increase my debt load, which would lower the cash flow. But what it did do is, as these properties appreciated, it added like, $1 million, $2 million, $5 million to my net worth as a result of these properties. It's been quite a run.
Yeah, there's. I live in the southeast of the UK, and about must be 20 years ago now, they built a high-speed rail link, which is part of the Channel Tunnel to Paris and stuff, which connected up these coastal towns with London.
Yeah.
Via a high-speed train, like 45 minutes an hour.
Right.
So they not too long ago, literally 3 or 4 weeks ago, they had this property which become the most expensive 2 up, 2 down in the country, because she bought it for 70,000 or something 10, 12 years ago, and now it's worth £1 million, because it's on the perfect street in this now regenerated area. That's all. If it's not Airbnb, it's traders and London. They call them DFLs, down from London.
What's an EFL?
DFL.
Oh, okay.
Down from Londoners.
Oh, down from London. Okay, all right.
They basically buy this property
yeah.
somewhere on the coast, and it's either their weekend retreat, or they've decided to escape London and now they're living there because they can get back to work within 45 minutes.
Well, and there's no question that commuting has always been around, but towns like that were really just too far from the big city until mass transit started to happen. And whether you're listening from the UK or from the United States or whatever, paying attention to major changes to the transit system is like getting that insider information. And using that example where had you known that the transit was going to come in 15 years ago and picked up that property for £70,000, and oh, by the way, I doubt if she put in £70,000, she probably put down 20% down, so she probably put down £14,000 and has turned that into $1 million. Now that's an exceptional ratio, but even if it went to $250,000,
yeah. Do you know what? I think I exaggerated. I think it's actually 600,000.
But still, like, even if it was $250,000, that's an okay ROI. Let me tell you, that's a good return. So,
so I want this to be of real value for people today. There's some core concepts to your journey, which anyone can kind of emulate. Really, I put in the blurb: knowledge, consistency, network with intelligent people. And if we can get across to people today some of the ways to get started, some of the stupid things that perhaps first timers can avoid, and then I dare say there's some value that you can add because you've gone from not just dabbling in it to it actually being, as you said, armchair millionaire, so that we can make it of value to some people that perhaps may have one or two properties. Anyway, are you a family man, Michael?
I have a now a 24-year-old son, and actually, if it's okay, I'd love to share a little bit of my backstory. I normally don't share all of that, but being a Team Super Dad fan, I thought I've been waiting to share this story with you. I did share a little bit of this in my book, but much like many of you, I was, as a teenager, I had aspirations. As a matter of fact, I was a bit of a snarky kid where when people asked me what I wanted to do for a living, I would say I want to be a millionaire. So which, again, I didn't want to be a fireman or policeman. I wanted to be a millionaire. So, my 20s come and go, and I meet a girl, I get a job, I finish school, have a child, get a promotion, get another promotion. And before you know it, I'm stuck in middle management or upper middle management. And my 20s go by.
Yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I was a territory, but same idea. Okay. And 20s go by, and I'm in my mid 30s, and I'm coming close to 40. And I'm now recently divorced. I've got a young, well, I guess getting about 10, 12-year-old child. I'm still in the same middle management or upper middle management business I was. My net worth is essentially nil. And I'm closing in on 40. I'm saying, how the hell did that happen? Like, how did that happen? And so, I was able to find a new girl, and start to turn my life around. And we had an opportunity to purchase an investment or a house here. And I decided at that time to become a realtor and started the journey towards real estate. It was more of an accident as much as anything else. And it just started snowballing from there. And I always had those career aspirations. I always had those wealth aspirations, but everything I'd ever tried prior to that really didn't amount to a hell of a lot. And then all of a sudden I just fell into real estate, and I was that C and D student that all of a sudden became the leader for real estate investing in my region. So it was pretty cool.
Yeah, you've been they call it awards and recognized by your peers for how effective you are at this. And it's not just about having a trophy and stuff. It's actually nice to get that peer acknowledgement. But
it is.
It's testimony to the success that's available for just everyday people.
Yeah, it really is. And if I could give any advice, is if you are recently divorced, and if you're looking for another spouse, find somebody who has more wealth than you. There's a tip for you today, so you can take. And so instead of me supporting my wife, it was the other way around for a little while, and it allowed me to spur on and move forward and get going. So that was a great start. I'm joking a little bit, by the way, guys, but just sharing.
No, speaking for someone who's divorced and in a happy relationship at present. The pressures that were on that search in late 20s and 30s is now off. And so I've got the experience of being divorced and having lived in a painful marriage, not just as much down to me as it was her, but we weren't compatible. And I can see now that making the right choice about a wife or partner, when the pressure's off about children and marriage and life expectations, you can actually start to tune into values, ambitions, what are your motivators, and you actually start to tune into, are we really compatible? And I hope for many people who are going around and creating those second relationships, second marriages, that they are more careful and diligent in both being honest about themselves, but also honest about what they want.
Well said. Honestly, it's I went in with a mindset almost stealth-like, where I had certain, I was a chart maker, and so they needed to have the certain qualifications for me to move forward. There was a girl who was just a gorgeous knockout who was reaching out to me, but she worked part-time at a Kentucky Fried Chicken. And unfortunately she didn't meet my criteria. So, looks is nice, but having somebody who is someone who could be a partner in your life is probably a little more important. So. Yeah,
absolutely. We got a whole other sessions on that. So it'd be great to, you can come and join us on those as well. But so what was the first purchase? How do you want to take this? Do you want to go through the journey, or the first one, or have you got?
Yeah, well, a little bit. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I didn't have this millionaire mindset when I bought my first property. I was a realtor, and I focused on working with investors, and so I thought to make myself more appealing to real estate investors, I said, hey, maybe I should buy one too. And I saw some of the people that were taking action, and they weren't any smarter than I was. And I thought, okay. So I bought what I was told to buy, and that was sort of dilapidated buildings that were under market value in secondary and tertiary markets. And it seemed to make sense because they were great values. Well, it was a royal pain in the ass, because not only was the tenant profile very poor, and we weren't always collecting our rents, but even if we did fix them up, it was hard to attract nicer tenants, because all of the buildings around it and the neighborhood around it really wasn't conducive for a premium tenant.
Yeah, nice
And
people want to live in nice places, nice
it
neighborhoods. Yeah.
really is the case. And so I ended up really an aha moment for me was I started to focus on buying, if I could buy a quality property in a quality neighborhood, I could attract quality tenants, and it becomes a very easy part-time job. I could hold on to these properties for a long time. And in real estate, the real win is when you hold on to those assets for a long time, and that led to quality profits. So, and it was just such an aha moment for me. And so now, fast forward to today, I'm sure that there's people in the real estate sector that have 100 or 500 properties. I've got a dozen properties. That's all I have. But these dozen properties require less than 5 hours a month in activity. So it's a real part-time side hustle. And it's got me to the point where I can have so many more choices in life. I was at 55, I was able to semi-retire or retire if I wanted to, because the revenue that real estate has afforded me has now put me to the point where I don't need to work anymore.
And and what you just said there answers that question about, is it too late? Have I left it too late? Have I missed the boat? If you're holding on to it for 10 years or more, you kind of can't miss the boat. Is there any periods in history where properties over a 10-year period have not gone up?
I suppose if you looked hard, there's times where the values have sort of stagnated for a period of time. But what I want to share with you is it's not like, if I ask you, what is the weather in the UK? You're going to say, well, that depends on where in the UK you live. The weather in Scotland is very different than the weather in London. It's just the way it is. It's the same in real estate. Is to say that what's the real estate market like in the UK is just it's a false comment to even ask. Real estate is regional, and so if you invest in a quality market, like London, let's use as an example. Actually, let's jump over to the American side, New York City. I love New York City. If you've ever been to New York, it's one of the greatest cities in the world. Problem with New York right now is it's going through a major population decrease. It was even happening prior to COVID, but even since COVID, it's dropped even more. Why that's such a big deal is that now there's simply more housing than there is people. And as a result, housing prices are starting to fall. And so I speculate that it's already happened. Over the last 5 years, New York prices are actually lower than they were 5 years ago. And I think 5 years from now, they still won't be up to the prices of 10 years ago. Comparison-wise, Toronto is one of the fastest growing cities in North America. And so honestly, I could buy a sack of dirt and it's going to go up in value right now. It's amazing how much has gone up in value. And so using that example that you talked about, where all of a sudden these towns that used to be 3-4 hours away from London are now less than an hour from London, you're probably seeing an appreciation or a population increase. And so as a result, you'll see an appreciation in value as a result of that. So it's using a little bit of intelligence, and we talk about that in the book, in terms of just doing some proper research. So the answer is absolutely property values can go up if you buy in the right type of location.
Yeah. And what about, you see some people saying, oh, if where you live is not the right kind of affordable things, then go to a different region and pick somewhere. So I've met people who've got properties like 4 or 5 hours away. To me, that seems kind of like, how the hell am I going to manage it if it's that far away? Is it going to come? Am I going to be wanting to spend the weekend with my kids, but actually having to drive another 5-10 hour round trip? Does it make sense to buy property that far away from where you're based?
Obviously, it's ideal to have something that's close, but if the market that you're in is just simply stagnant and is in the near future is expected to be stagnant going forward, it just doesn't make sense to invest your dollars in the market near your house. So, if all things are equal, absolutely invest within an hour or two of your home. But if it's not, like at the end of the day, because you're focusing on quality real estate and I'm a big believer in having a power team. and your power team could include a property manager. And that property manager does the day-to-day operations of your building. Yes, that's going to affect your cash flow a little bit, but at the end of the day, all you have to do is manage the property manager, and that may be something you only need to do once every few months to monitor and make sure everything is going well. The beautiful thing about quality real estate is you don't need to be going up to that property every other week. You know, some of our properties we go up every 6 months. That's all we do.
Yeah. Well, since my divorce, I'm still renting. I've lived here 5 years, and I'm like a dream tenant.
Yeah.
Because I've spoken to my landlord. I'm not kidding. If it's more than 10 times in 5 years, I'll be amazed.
Yeah. So that's every 6 months, give or take. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. So spot on. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And he must be, he went and moved in with his girlfriend and just rented this place out. So he's not like a professional landlord. So when people ask him how it's going, he must be like, it's the easiest thing I've ever done in my life.
Well, and let's say he lived 10 hours away from you in terms of drive wise, it wouldn't have affected his ability to be your landlord because like how many times you've spoken to him 10 times, you've probably seen him even less than that. So
yeah, oh yeah, totally. I think I've probably seen him 3 times. Yeah. And that question's gone out of my brain. Oh yeah, property management and stuff. I've seen videos and I've spoken to other property, inverted commas, experts, and they say when they're talking about creating the business, creating the lifestyle, then all of the little jobs that go into managing the property, let's say cleaning it or tidying it up after someone moves out, then you'd be mad to try and do all of that yourself and exhausting yourself, when actually if you build it into the calculations, then it's just part of how your business works, and then aka how your life works, and designing your life how you want it to be.
Yeah. And this isn't just real estate. This is in general. If you think of it, there are $10 jobs, there are $100 jobs, and there are $1,000 jobs per hour. And so like for me, a $10 an hour job is, or $10 to $25 an hour is mowing the lawn, or in Canada, shoveling snow or cleaning the apartment. Those are smaller tasks. And so one of the things that's really helped me grow my net worth is through being in real estate sales. That's something that's $1,000 an hour type task. If I can do that effectively, I can make a lot of money. The people that struggle in their business life, they're focusing so much on the minuscule tasks that take up, that are worth $10 to $25 an hour, that they don't have enough time to focus on the big stuff. So one of the things that I've done over the last 5 to 10 years is I've made a concerted effort to actually essentially eliminate all of the $10 tasks. So we have people that shovel our driveway and mow our lawn and clean our house and right down the line. And that's not even with regards to our real estate portfolio. It's just in general. And so that would be something I would advise to anyone that's really trying to get ahead, is to look at everything they do on a daily and weekly basis and try to eliminate the things that other people can do at a reasonable price that's not going to change your life a heck of a lot, and then focus on the stuff that can really build wealth.
Yeah. And I often say that the secrets of success are not that secret. It's just that only a few people do them.
Yeah.
And what you've just shared there was echoed by George McGarren when I spoke to him. And it's efficiencies. And but people, if that wasn't obvious to people, $10 jobs that have cost $100, if you could earn $100 in an hour or $1,000 in an hour, you're ahead by outsourcing those or paying someone else to do those. And that person's quite likely grateful for that work, because that's the work they're looking for.
And it's funny, my neighbors always tease me because we've got constantly an array of people coming through the house doing little tasks, and they say, how do you afford that? And I say, well, I just, it's, in my mind, I'm recycling money. I'm helping out the community and getting, more employment out there. And oh, by the way, what I've been focusing on in the last couple of years is, well, obviously writing the book, and also focusing on option trading and value investing, and of course real estate investing, and then educating. So like those are my $1,000 an hour jobs. And so if I could avoid mowing the lawn but take a course in equity investing, then I think I'll be ahead of the game. So
yeah, well, continuous learning.
yeah,
It's one of the values inside of Team Superdad. And so let's talk about how people can find money. Like, the idea that we're going to suddenly buy a property and invest in property. I think an obvious question that springs to people's mind that perhaps stops them from even researching and looking at how they can do it is, well, I'm never going to be able to get the money together to do that, so I'm not even going to bother starting. What's the solution there?
Yeah, you obviously do need a starting salary or starting down payment. If you don't have two nickels to rub together, then you're likely not going to be able to buy with nothing down. They talk about the concept of buying with nothing down, but it's the more realistic way of doing it is to have at least enough money for a down payment. The one cool thing about real estate is that in real estate, I believe, is an unfair advantage over other wealth building opportunities. And what I mean by that is, well, they actually just in Britain, they've just passed a law or a rule that you can buy a property with as little as 5% down, and with an amortization as much as 40 years in the right situation. So if, let's say, a property is £500,000, it's not like you need to come up with £500,000. You need to come up with perhaps as little as 5% of that, which is more like £25,000. So it's still not nothing, but we're not talking anywhere near £500,000 either. And so I'm a huge advocate of using leveraging in order to build your long-term wealth. So if you're in a position where you've got enough money to put down as a down payment, if it has the right market fundamentals, you're certainly ahead of the game for sure. So using leveraging, using the long-term amortization, these are things that I advocate for sure.
Yeah, Grant Cardone, he often says something, I'm going to get this slightly wrong, but he says like, if someone gave me 900 grand to buy a house, I wouldn't buy a house. I would invest it in 4 houses and have made that money back in however many years, basically.
Yeah, and obviously Grant Cardone, he's at a whole nother level. Honestly, when I hear, I've heard Grant Cardone speak in person, and it's almost tiring. Some of his 10x policies and his ideas and stuff like that. Like, honestly, as simple as purchasing, if I was in my 30s right now in Britain, 100% I would use house hacking as a means of building wealth. Currently, about 31% of millennials in the UK currently own their own houses, which is well below the world average. House hacking is a term that is used for living in either one component of the house, or if it was a duplex, one half of the house, and then renting out the other. Yeah. And it could be a matter of having a tenant in the place. Even if they're just renting a room, letting a room. That's a way of doing it. And what that does is it reduces the amount of money they're paying on a monthly and annual basis on their debt financing, and it allows them to get into the house. So using you as an example, if you could have purchased the place you have right now, you'd be 5 years ahead in terms of buying the place or in wealth.
Funny story. When I was a student, I was this close to having a genius idea, but the problem was I said it in a hazy pot smoke filled room. And I said, we should take our student loans and buy a house together, and like next year we'll all live there and it'll be brilliant, right? So everyone's laughing and calling me a dickhead, right? But it was this close. And funnily enough, the property we ended up living in about a year after that was a guy who wasn't that much older than us, and he bought it for 11 grand at auction. So not only, in my mind, we're going to get a deposit together, the three of us would have, paid for a quarter of the house just in the student loan. So yeah, it was that close to
But okay, so you swung and missed there. But now that you're in your 40s, actually, and you asked the question a couple different ways. Let me address this one too. Is we actually in the book I did some success stories, and again, the success stories were not people that bought 100 properties. It was as little as 2 or 3. And one of the success stories was a gentleman who was in his mid 60s, and he'd had a very good, successful career as a contractor, and he built a lot of wealth for a lot of other people over the years, as you know. And he basically said, "Now is my turn." And so I think he started around 64, if memory served. And over the next 5 to 6 years, he amassed a really good increase in net worth. And his goal was not for long-term wealth for him. It was for a legacy for his family. And unfortunately, the story has a bit of a sad ending, is that he ended up developing cancer and he passed away. But I had a chance to speak to him about a few weeks before he died, and he thanked my wife and I so much for introducing him to real estate and investing, and he just felt so good that he was leaving a legacy for his family. And so, he was a guy who was in his mid 60s by the time he got started. So certainly if you're in your 30s or 40s or even your 50s, it is by no means too late, because in 5 to 10 years, you can make a significant difference in your net wealth.
That's me. I'm in. I'm absolutely in. I want to be I want to be a homeowner. The business, the divorce, COVID. There's been a lot of financial challenges that feel like have made that homeowner status, a little bit far off, not out of reach, and it will happen. But what I can see from conversations around property investing is that the level of knowledge, even if you're not going to become a property investor, but the level of knowledge to buy a house with the mindset of a property investor is much more sensible than just going and buying a house as a regular house buyer, because there's levels to which you use the word leverage, there's levels to which are below market value. There's a whole load of things that property investors know about and they put into their decision-making process that normal house buyers don't, and we probably should when we're buying a house.
Absolutely. I as a realtor, as an investor realtor, I always use the joke. I said, the best thing of working with investors is they're not emotional in their investing purchase. The worst thing about working with investors is they're not emotional when they're making their investment purchase. So it's the same. But you're absolutely right. I use a strategic approach, even if I'm working with somebody who's looking at buying their forever home, because again, they might fall in love with something in the house, but if it doesn't make the right financial sense, I will often sway them away from buying that, because honestly, even if you're buying your first home or your dream home, everything is still an investment of sorts. And what's so great about real estate is the vast majority of us around the world, we buy, as Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad always says, we buy doodads, we buy depreciating assets. So our car is certainly not an appreciating asset. So I mentioned this in the book. It amazes me how many people have Land Rovers and they still have a landlord, and so that's one of the things that just buying some appreciating assets that are likely going to go up in value is certainly a good thing.
And if someone's saving for a deposit for a house, like their family home, is there a time when it makes sense to buy a property that they're going to rent out, or that's going to be an investment before they actually buy their family home? I've seen blog posts and videos, people saying that kind of thing. Don't buy a home and live in it. Rent homes, and basically that's.
Yeah, Robert Kiyosaki, who, if you've not read his book Rich Dad, is an incredible read. And I'm just so you guys know, I am not this. I read this book this week and that book next week and this book and that book. I am not I'm not one of these readers that just get up in the morning and read 100 wealth page books. That's not me. But make an exception for Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It's an incredible mindset shift for people. And actually, in my book, I think would be a pretty easy read as well. Because I'm not a huge reader, I include humor and graphics and illustrations and cartoons and whatever. But anyway, so going back to renting your own home is something that Robert Kiyosaki is certainly an advocate of. And the reason for that is because, especially if you're in a market like London, for example, where the carrying cost of a home is, it's greater than than if you were renting it. Then if you do the financial numbers, if let's say you could rent it, what would be a flat in London? What would be a going price for a flat in London right now?
For like a 2-bedroom flat would be definitely around 1,600.
Okay, so 1,600. Meanwhile, what would it be the cost to purchase that same flat?
Again, different areas, and I haven't been living there a while, but yeah, I can imagine it could be easily getting towards the million. Yeah.
and so you can't possibly carry that property for $1,600 of interest. It would be more than that. So that would be an example where you're doing your financial numbers and you say, okay, I'm not really building wealth here. I'm actually just paying more in interest. So if I have that certain level of cash, rent where I want to live, and then use that money and purchase where I want to build wealth. So that would be that's the concept that you're referring to.
Okay. And so where do people go to, obviously your book, great place to go to start your knowledge, your quest for knowledge. I alluded to running to the back of the room and buying someone's weekend course, probably not such a good idea. But there's property networking events, there's people on YouTube. What's a sensible way for someone to start to develop the knowledge required to become a property investor?
Yeah, there is an absolute crap load of local real estate investment groups. It's shocking how many there are all across the world, and these meetups are a great place to talk to other people that are actually doing what you're hoping to do. And I'm a huge believer in rubbing shoulders with people that are actually taking action, because one of the challenges that we face in our lives, and I was guilty of this in my 20s and 30s, is all of my high school friends of mine, or even the people I was hanging around with in my 20s and 30s, none of them, that we may have owned our own home, but none of us were real estate investors. So it took me hanging around with other people that were actually doing what I wanted to do that made a huge difference in my life. So that was something I was a huge believer in. But when it comes to education and books, honestly, there's more podcasts than you know what to do with. There are some certainly better choices than others. If you do buy my book, I actually I reference a lot of the books that were influential to me to get me started in real estate investing. I'd like to think that my attitude is I'm not a get rich quick back of the room type of guy. I'm a bit of a cheerleader, of course, for wealth building, but it's a more structured, strategic approach, and that's kind of the attitude that I've been taking, and that's just my personality type. I'm not the slick salesman type of guy. I'm more just going to give you the facts, and hopefully you'll make the right decisions.
Yeah. And what are some of the stupid mistakes that people should watch out for in the early parts of their property investing?
100%. Honestly, the biggest mistake, Johnny, that I made and everybody else makes is they buy a property because it's cheap. And using the UK as an example, there are areas when I was in Scotland, it's a pretty desolate area. Like it's beautiful, but there's not a lot of population there. I'm sure that I can go in some little village in Scotland and buy some cheap property that probably hasn't appreciated in 50 years and just be able to get it. Let's say it's a banged up home and, it hasn't been updated in a century. That's not necessarily the investment that I would indulge in myself. Buying it in the scuzziest neighborhood in South London or something like that, where it's, everything's falling apart and drugs and prostitutes, and that's not the kind of tenant profile I want to have. So
we all know that if we think about the areas we all know, oh, there's the good side of town, there's the bad side of town.
That's right.
There's the middle part of town.
Yeah, I'll give you a pop century reference. I like to pretend I take my DeLorean 30 years in the future, and if that neighborhood is still a good neighborhood, then that's where I want to invest. And I don't want to invest in an area where I honestly don't know what kind of neighborhood that's going to be. I want it as simple as possible. I want it so that it's almost foolproof, and that's the kind of portfolio I have right now.
Yeah. And what does might seem like a silly question, but I'm going to ask this question because I like it. When people, it's important for people to realize if they're thinking about their future, they're creating a goal or a vision for themselves, is to actually imagine what it will be like when they've achieved that goal. Like, what difference will it make to their life? Because that's where we can go to find consistent motivation for things. Having created this lifestyle where you're financially, I don't know if you're financially free, but you said you've semi-retired, so I dare say you are financially free.
Yep.
You have a relationship that's working for you. What has this property journey, what has becoming a property investor done for you in terms of your life and for the people around you?
Yeah, when I started in this, I did a net worth analysis, and that was one of the first tasks I was taught to do like 10, 15, or about 15 years ago. And it was a pretty sad state of affairs, let me be honest with you. I listed all of my expenses, all of my current values of what I had, and there wasn't a heck of a lot there. But it started me on a journey of finding of finding ways of building wealth the way I wanted to. And so with that as I wouldn't say singular focus, but certainly a primary focus of wealth building, what it's allowed me to do is it's given me a sense of freedom and choices to do what I want to do versus what I have to do. I don't need to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to a 9 to 5 job. I could sleep until 9:30 if I want to. I could choose to work on a weekend, or I could choose to take a few days off, and I'm okay with that. I could choose to enhance my education, or I could watch a Gilligan's Island rerun for a marathon for the next 12 hours. That's the kind of choice selection that it's allowed me to do. And honestly, when I was 43, 45, I really didn't even see this coming. And it was one of these things that by doing the net worth analysis, and I could actually see the journey as it was moving forward, it's allowed my wife to be able to retire about 6 years ago from her 9 to 5 job. And she actually got her real estate license and joined my team. It's done so much for me from a networking and a friendship standpoint. The amount of friends and colleagues that I've met through this journey that's something I wasn't expecting. I wasn't expecting to meet as many friends, and I'd say 3/4 of the people I hang around with today have also done the same journey as me. We've sort of rose up together, and it's been kind of a cool thing. The amount of traveling I've done, there's been a lot of things. Like I've got a bucket list of activities, and my goal is to knock off as many once in a lifetime experiences as I can.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, we do in week 1 of the Hero Academy, we do a net worth analysis as well as a lifestyle calculator. And in, I think it's week 7, there's a focus on bucket lists and fun and adventure. So both those things are right up there in terms of creating the life that we want. Really, we get one time round on this crazy rock, and the most we can enjoy it. My dad always says to me, "Son, are you having enough fun?"
It's so easy to settle in and be a renter because it's less work for 5 years. And I'm going to take a shot at you, Johnny, is that, it's worth taking a look to see if there are opportunities to start building wealth through real estate. I'm not saying it's brainless. Especially if you're involving tenants, you are running a business. You have to treat it like a business. But this is a business that, it's not like you're driving for Uber Eats or you're building scrunchies for the local kids. You're building something that can turn you into a millionaire. And even if it doesn't, if it just gives you a little bit of freedom, just 1 or 2 properties can truly change your life.
Yeah, mega. Wow, Michael, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing that. Do you want to hold up the book again for our viewers? Not good for our podcast listeners.
Yeah. So I'm going to do a shameless promotion here for anyone who's looking. It's a blue book called, oh, where's here? There it is. Armchair Real Estate Millionaire. And if you're sitting there anyway, you might as well build your wealth. It's meant to be lighthearted, but at the same time, it's full of facts and it motivates you to move forward. It gives you a call to action, and I really think it's something that if you're looking to try to find a way of getting ahead, it's a good strategy that won't necessarily take over your life. Real estate is meant to fund your life, not run your life, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, I've read the excerpts that I was sent. I listened to a lot of audiobooks. I was doing my bookkeeping last night, and Audible told me I'd had my account since 2009.
Okay.
So given that I've got one credit at the moment, that means there's 9 times 12. It's like,
yeah,
there's a lot of books in there, and I've listened to pretty much all of them. And
wow, good for you.
That's something we all need to take on board. Like, at least be reading 6 books a year, at the very least, one every couple of months. You should be able to do that. And I enjoyed the excerpts from your book because they were accessible. They felt like real life. It wasn't too hard going, and it felt really relatable. So yeah, it was great to get you on and meet you in person.
Yeah, and even if you are in a position where you don't have a lot of funds right now, that doesn't stop you from working on your education and to move forward. And using partners and joint ventures, and there are ways to move forward even if your income level is pretty low right now, and or your net worth level is low. So don't just give up and raise your hands and say, oh well, I guess I tried, because there are certainly things you can do. Even joining this group, for example, and starting to learn, if they're talking about net worth analysis, just because your net worth really sucks today doesn't mean it will suck in 5 years. So let's, start making it happen.
As painful as it is to get that number, 0 or less than 0,
yeah.
You're way ahead of people that don't know that number, because they're avoiding it. They're hiding from it. They're trying to ignore the fact that it's a crap number. It's, they say where attention goes, energy flows. And when it's not until we put the microscope on our finances, and when we start to read books, start to listen to podcasts, start to learn more about what it is to be fit and healthy, what it is to manage our money, what it is to grow our money, what it is to foster strong relationships, to find the partner of our dreams, to reconnect with our parents, we're not born with this knowledge. So bloody well go out there and get it, because that's where the secret of having the life that you want is going to come from. Well said. Brilliant. Michael, I'm going to bring up your website address one more time there, armchairrealestatemillionaire.com. Books available on Amazon and all other good bookshops, and some crap ones as well.
Yep. That's right.
I'll play the outro and we'll say goodbye on the other side. Hold tight. Everyone, thanks for joining us. Please subscribe to the Team Superdad podcast. If you go to teamsuperdad.com/get podcast, it will take you to the most appropriate podcast service for your device. That's really handy. Be sure to subscribe and share it around with people. And if you've liked what you've heard here today and you want to be more involved with the community, our irresistible community of modern dads, then simply go to teamsuperdad.com/group, and you'll be in on the power list, in on our community. You'll get heads up on events and early birds on all our courses and programs. And firewalking events are coming back now that we can do all those things together. Thanks for joining us today. Team Superdad out. Video. Outro. Boom.
This has been Team Superdad. Find us at teamsuperdad.com. Join the program and create the best life ever for you and your children. You are not alone. You're on Team Superdad.